Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining Workspace Spark YouTube channel. As you know, we always try to provide the best experts in the field to talk all things work, all things personal, and all things in between, because we are all whole people and we bring human-centered training and services to everyone here. So today, we are welcoming Jasmine Herbert. We are so excited for you to be here. She is an amazing career coach. And can you just tell us, our subscribers, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you for having me again. Like Vanessa said, I'm a career coach and talent management consultant, which basically means on the career coaching side, I help clients who are looking to navigate from point A to point B through the job search process, interviews, LinkedIn, anything in between from application to offer. And on the talent management consultant side, I'm helping organizations manage the talent on the back end to make sure that what they're presenting out there as far as job ads or the interview process through the employer side also meets the requirements and standards of what they're trying to promote. So very excited to be talking to your subscribers today.
Awesome, awesome. Love the name, the Employee Handbook. So tell me, what was your inspiration for creating this?
Absolutely. And just a quick story about the name. So I thought about just thinking of creating a guide for employee or candidates or applicants or job seekers to navigate through that. So you think about your actual employee handbook. It has everything you need to know to be successful at work, to make sure that you have all of the tools and information that you need. So I thought to do a little play on words to
Love
have that
it.
as a guide. And so the inspiration behind the employee handbook really came from my years of being working in corporate, working as an HR coordinator, generalist, manager, a recruiter. And so, when you have family and friends, they find out what you do. They want to know, hey, can you help me with my resume? Can you help me with interviewing? Is this legal? Like any other question in between. So I was like, okay, if this many people are asking these questions, I wonder if there's an opportunity to help others. And so what I found across the years of my time in corporate was that there was a huge disconnect between what employers were looking for and what job seekers had to offer. There was a huge gap. And it wasn't for lack of talent on the applicant side. It was just lack of information, not knowing what to expect through different processes, through different areas, not knowing, the purpose of your resume specifically. You use it to apply, but how are you using the documents and tools, not utilizing the power of your social media by way of LinkedIn and just anything. It was just such a disconnect between the information. So I thought to bridge the gap, make sure that both sides really understood what the other needed, that way we can connect great talent to great organizations and people can really start to dive into the areas that are important to them.
I think that's super important. I mean, unless you're a serial interviewer, a serial job hunter, right? Most people staying at jobs 3 to 5 years in your career path, how many times are you interviewing? How many times are you updating your resume, right? And so you think it's just applying, and you don't really know you don't understand the behind the scenes process of what someone who is going to hire you is looking for. And I do think there's a big gap in that knowledge. And we've had experts on here. And I mean, sometimes I'm like, wow, I had no idea. Some of the tricks and tools that we can do to stand, So let's talk about your 3-step approach to helping clients. Like, how do you help clients? I know, when family finds out you're doing something, but listen, sometimes family is proof in the pudding, right? Like it's like confirmation. I think I could probably do this for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So with your consulting and how you help clients, what's your 3-step approach?
Yeah, so normally what I like to do just in general, before anyone even connects with me, I like to share a lot of information on social media. So if it's through LinkedIn, through Instagram, Facebook, or wherever the people are, I try to just share information because you just don't know what you don't know. And so from there, maybe interest is, send over maybe through a DM or an email or however they get to me. So once I connect with you, someone reaches out, say, hey, can you help me with this? Or I have a question about that. What I like to do is just have a conversation with you, because I think a lot of times being able to talk through it instead of just submitting a request through email and just kind of doing everything like online. I want to talk to you. I want to hear, what are you struggling with? What is happening right now currently? Because a lot of times it's a lot of pain and frustration. You may be going through something right now at your job, or you may have gotten laid off. There's a ton of layoffs. If you're paying attention on LinkedIn or just in general in the world right now, people are getting laid off left and right. And so when they connect with me, they are here at a place of, desperation. Sometimes they may need help, or they may be looking for a career transition or just some guidance, like, help me. And so we have those conversations, and I have guided questions that I'll ask to help uncover those specific needs. And from there, I'll make a recommendation to them to see, here's what I see based on what we've talked about. Here's what I've done in the past. Here are services that I offer. If they want to, see referrals or testimonials, we go through that just to make sure they feel comfortable moving forward. And from there, if we both agree that this could be a great partnership, then I get started right away with services. Now, there's two different ways to connect, because, for someone who's coming in and they want to know, what do I do? How do I move from point A to point B if I want to transition, but I'm not quite sure what to do? That's a career discovery path. I do have a career transition path as well, where, clients will come and say, I don't want to be in education anymore. I'm over it. I need to move into something else. I want to get into tech, or I want to get into finance or something like that. They have their eyes set on a certain industry or a certain position. So for that group, it's a career transition. It's a completely different package. And then sometimes it's just, I might just need to spruce up my LinkedIn, or I want to do something. I need help with interviewing. Let's set up a mock interview session. So whatever that looks like, I make that recommendation, and then we get started. And from there, what I find is different about what I offer is I don't just give you pretty documents and set you up one time and forget you. I offer and make sure that I'm staying in touch with you after the fact, because once you have that nice resume, now what happens when you get your first interview? What happens when somebody reaches out? That panic starts to set in again. And so what I recognize is that, being able to help guide you through every step behind the scenes is also important. So I don't leave you hanging to dry. I make sure that you have me kind of like an HR consultant in your pocket throughout each of those phases. So that way you feel comfortable and you can text, hey, they just sent me this request. What do I say? Or what do I do? So you feel good about moving through each phase. And then after that, you hopefully move into a space that you really love quickly. You feel confident in moving through the job search process after the fact, and that knowledge sticks with you beyond our sessions.
Awesome. I wanted to talk about that. And thank you so much for sharing, because, we have a lot of career experts on here, and, like you said, there's a lot of layoffs right now happening in the world. Talks of recession, talks of inflation, those things are triggering to people. You feel scared. You may not feel secure in your jobs. People don't know how to use a career coach. And oftentimes they may be afraid to reach out to one because they don't really know, wow, is this going to be way too expensive? Or is this something that I need right now? And a lot of people don't know how to use a career coach. So thank you so much for sharing that. Because we have the experts on here, but we want to make sure that people, feel comfortable understanding how to reach out to people and work with them. Now, you did touch on, again, about people having layoffs. And so one of the reasons I really wanted to interview is because you did a dynamic post about not landing the interview. And I just like your perspective on them. Before we jump into that, though, the mindset, right? Like, you're applying for all these jobs, but you're getting those rejection emails, or you're not getting email at all. You feel ghosted, right? Yeah. And if you're applying and you're in that space, you're typically applying for a lot of jobs, meaning you're getting a lot of those rejection letters, and you're not landing the interview. So before we talk about strategies on why, can we talk about mindset? Like, how do we get past that mindset of a rejection?
Absolutely. That's a really good question, because actually this week I had 2 clients that we were working through this exact situation, just being able to get through, just even getting up to the interview, working the nerve to get to that point. Because what you mentioned earlier, if you're not a serial interviewer or applicant, you may go through this process every few years, 3 to 5 years. And so by the time you've done it again, everything is different. What we were doing back in, what's this year, 22? What we were doing back in 2019, it's not the same. Everything is completely different. And so you're walking into a space of just uncertainty. So number one, giving yourself that grace to know that you are not expected to know every single thing. That's number one. The mindset of rejection comes in when you place that much pressure on yourself to have everything right all the time. And unfortunately, in the job seeking or the job search world, you're not in control of every aspect. You're only in control of yourself. You can't control how many people respond to you or don't respond to you, which is wildly frustrating that companies do that. I really can't stand that. Like, we'll get to that in a minute, but when you can only control what you can control, that's number one. So focusing on that, making sure that you've done the best that you know how to do. And sometimes, again, after an interview, I've had clients say, I've just bombed that interview. I didn't know what I was saying. My mind drew a blank, all of that. And it's like, okay, just breathe for a minute, because you did the best that you knew to do in that moment. There are elements that you can prepare for an interview and do all of those things ahead of time, but just the mindset of rejection, number one, knowing that it may not have always been you. It's not always your fault. It can be a number of different reasons. And most of the time, being on the recruiter side of things, it's not you. It's not you. And we'll get into the other reasons why, but understanding that you shouldn't place that on yourself. Like, oh, I'm disappointed. You can be disappointed and you can be sad and you can be angry and frustrated because you may have been interviewing over and over again. And that's an exhausting process, because sometimes interviews can go from a phone screen to a Zoom call to they may fly you in. You might have to do a demonstration or a presentation. You're spending a lot of your time doing something that has no guarantee. So understanding that, number one, and giving yourself grace to say, you know what, I am doing my absolute best and the right opportunity will land on me when it's time.
Yeah.
So just give yourself a minute and don't be so hard on yourself, because it's mostly not you.
That goes through so many areas of our life, not just our careers, right? Like giving ourselves grace and knowing that oftentimes it has nothing to do with us. And that is why I wanted to interview.
Yeah.
Again, you had such a dynamic post. I think it was like 6 reasons why you're not landing the interview. I think that a lot of posts and a lot of things I see are like, update your resume, blah, blah, blah. But I think that your perspective was so good because it allows us to see behind the scenes of why you may be landing it. That may not even be an issue with you.
Right.
So let's dive in. So the number one reason on your list was no direct industry experience. Can you share your thoughts about this first reason?
Yeah, sure. So when you think of applying for a role, let's take a marketing coordinator, for example. So a marketing coordinator, you think, okay, marketing coordinator, I can apply here, but the industry may be the problem. So let's say you have the resume is really good, your experience is solid, but your experience may have been primarily in healthcare, or it may have been primarily in finance, but the industry you're applying to might be, tech, or it could be education or post or higher education. And a lot of times on the back end of this is what's going on behind the scenes. You have to have a very specific type of industry experience because of the success of that role. Coming in with healthcare experience sometimes will not translate into other areas, not specifically healthcare, but having an alternate experience, even though you have the skill set, may not translate into that. And that's specifically due to maybe the clients that you have to serve, being able to come in immediately and understand the language of that industry, because there's so many different acronyms and systems that you may have to use. And someone who has that already will automatically get the upper hand because it cuts down the learning curve, especially for a role that may have been open for a long time, or a role that is very hard to fill, or for a manager who knows that they need a certain skill set immediately. So that has nothing, again, to do with the person. It has everything to do with the needs of the business. And so they'll accept those resumes, they'll accept that. And part of that, sometimes, again, you wouldn't know that because on a job description, sometimes job descriptions are very vague and they don't say, hey, specifically we want this industry. They may have a preference of education or a preference of, years of experience, but if they're not preferring one specific thing, you may not know why you don't have that. And you'll look at yourself again. It's like, what am I doing wrong? Then you go back and you redo your resume and it's like, no, it's not you, it's them. Honestly, they need something else that you may not have specifically to offer, but it doesn't mean that your skills aren't great. It just means that they don't translate for what's needed at that moment.
Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And if I think about, I was recently looking for a job, just landed something. So yay.
Yay.
Um,
Congrats.
Thanks. But when I think about job descriptions, I'm a project manager by trade, and I've only seen a couple of areas that were specific about a specific industry. I don't think they may ask some language or some programming, but I haven't seen a lot of that. So that is definitely one. All right.
Another note on that too, is when hiring managers, just behind the scenes, just kind of give you another peek. When a hiring manager or a position is posted, it can come through two different areas. It can come through a recruiter who's posting the role, or it can come through HR, whoever, somebody's back behind the scenes posting that job. What normally happens is those questions that are asked of the hiring manager are developed and created. That's how the job description is created. Some things may be stock already. Some things may have been just like, oh, this is what we were missing before, or it could be a job description they pulled out of the basement and just posted on there and didn't pay attention to it. So when a recruiter or hiring manager is looking for that, that is, again, the responsibility of the organization to really put out there and advertise in the way that they are trying to attract. So if a job description is reading one way and they're getting a ton of the quote unquote wrong type of candidates, that's not the fault of the candidate. It's because you're advertising it wrong and it's not showing what you actually want. So they're going to have that role open for several months maybe, and not really understand what's going on. It's because they need to do some internal work and fix it to attract the right type of applicant. So again, that's something that may not be their fault.
That makes so much sense. If I am the director, I'm typically working with an HR person. I may be saying this is the job that I need, but I may not be giving all the details. Right. I didn't even think about that.
You got to give the details. And as a recruiter on the other side, it's the role of talent acquisition to do a little bit more digging, because otherwise everybody's going to be rolling in circles, because no one's going to find what they need unless you're asking the right kind of questions to get the right kind of candidate. Digging into technology, digging into the areas that are most important to you, so that way you get what you want. So again, not your fault as a job seeker.
Well, that rolls into reason number 3. So the role has specific language needs. So like your thoughts around that? I guess it's a kind of the same thing as industry.
Yeah, so for language needs, I put that there because I came across that scenario right before I posted that, where, the initial post that I was working with a client was, hey, I want someone to be able to work in this space, they can have this skill set, but I was sending over clients or applicants and it was like, no. And I'm like, hey, let's talk about what you asked for. So here's what you asked for. And it's like, well, I know that we're going to be acquiring, a client out of Brazil or Chile or Peru pretty soon. So I would prefer this person can speak, Spanish or Portuguese. I'm like, okay, you know that, but I don't know that. And the candidates don't know that. So where they think they're qualified, they're not. So let's rearrange that job description and put preference to bilingual candidates here first. And so that's what that means. And part of that reason the language was important is because if you're going to be working primarily with a client who only speaks that, it would be unfair to put someone who doesn't speak that language, or at least have an understanding of that language, in that role, because they will not succeed. And so again, not the fault of someone who doesn't speak that language, but knowing that putting someone who was primarily maybe English speaker in that position, you're not going to do well. And then you're going to end up probably leaving. You're going to get frustrated. So we're looking out for that future candidate, that future employee, by putting those parameters in place first. So that way we know that they can be set up for success.
Yes, that makes total sense. Another one, reason number 4, an internal candidate has already been identified. This one's tough for me because I've seen this happen when I worked in a facility, like in a company.
Yeah.
But as a candidate, you may not ever know, right? And so this one is tough. What are your thoughts around this challenge?
Sometimes early on in a role, we post a position, and I say we, as I'm representing an organization. So you post a role and, you are getting external applicants and they're great. But then sometimes the flow of internal candidates come in slow. And so that means that now it's not that an internal candidate has already been identified. Sometimes there's two answers to that question. So we as an organization, you want to give preference to internal mobility and growth. Right. And that should be honestly within any company. If you have the talent right there and you can promote from within, that should already be something that you're striving to do, because it'd be easier to replace the talent moving up than to replace the talent that you're coming in on top of, because then you're going to lose people because they're not being seen. And so on the other side of that, candidates don't know that. They just know that they're qualified, and it's just like, well, what happened? So that may be what's going on. They're promoting from within. Or I've seen in other situations where by law, you have to post the role. And so it's just
they have already had someone, but you got to post it.
Yeah, you got to post it as a formality. And different states have different rules. Some companies, you don't have to do that. In some states, you don't have to do that. But in others, you have to post it for a period of maybe 7 days or 15 days or 30 days to give preference or give an opportunity for other people to apply based on EOE guidelines. So that could be it too, even though they know who they want, they know that, but just doing it by law. Yes, it teeters on the scale of morality sometimes, but at the same time, again, that's nothing you can control. If an internal candidate has been identified, if the law just states that they have to post it externally too.
I had a friend that applied for a role, and when in the interview, they told her, we have an internal candidate that is pretty strong, but we're still taking interviews. And my friend ended up getting the job anyway, because they had to post it, they got better qualified people. Unfortunately for the person who may have thought that they were getting the job, but my friend still got she still got the job. And so I think it's also a testament to say that just, still apply. You just never even because that company was honest and said, hey, we do have an internal candidate that's pretty strong. But then she did so well, and they thought that she could fit the description a little bit better. So, I think it goes both ways. And I think you have to think about that. We're talking about the mindset of rejection. Like a lot, the things that we've just talked about, the 3 different reasons had nothing to do with the people. So
at all. And what your friend experienced, it goes to speak to the integrity of the company. Not all companies operate the same. And we've seen that you have some really great organizations, and you've got some that are that probably just need to go out of business the way they handle their people. They just don't need to be, because they just have no idea what they're doing. But that speaks to the integrity of the interview process, because on the backside of that, again, the hiring manager is working with HR, is working with recruiting to say, hey, I know you have your pick, maybe, but be open to other things, because you may be, limiting yourself in this sense by thinking you have something. So having other people come in, yes, it's law, but at the same time, what if you have 5 people that are better? There's an opportunity for you to maybe develop that internal employee to get to that level. They can maybe have a junior role or report into that person, but keep yourself open, because again, all of that is based on business needs, and you don't want to just operate in a sense of just, I'm going to do whatever I want because I feel like it, because you're limiting yourself and you're excluding really great talent in the process. So that speaks to a really great process. So good for her. Good for her.
Yes. Really, I want to speak on something you said, like people that aren't treating their employees great, or even the interview process. When I was looking for a job, I was getting all these rejection letters. I can't think of the company. I really hate that I can't think of them, but the company reached out. It was the nicest rejection letter I have ever received, because it was like human-centered. It was like, hey, don't let this stop you. You weren't a good fit for the role. It said something like, stay in touch, keep looking at our site. We open jobs all the time. We think that, basically don't be defeated by this.
Right.
It was the best rejection. I emailed the HR person back like, listen, I'm applying for so many jobs. This is the best rejection letter.
Right. I love that. Because
and she responded saying that I really worked hard to because I've been on the receiving end of rejection. So I just thought it was so good.
That's good. I love that, because that means that somebody's paying attention to what's happening. They know, and like she said, being on the other side of that, it's rough, because I've been on that side, and just even to the point where you apply, you get an interview, and then nothing. That's even worse.
Ooh, that ghosting. It's like a boyfriend. Right. Ghosting is hard.
We were talking. You asked me out. Like, hell, I know I applied or whatever, but you talked to me, you introduced me to your family, you sent me over. Like, then you just leave me hanging. Like, you just left me high and dry. And so that's awful. But being on the other side of that, that's what I teach on the talent management consultant side of things. Be human in there. Don't just send auto-generated rejection letters, especially after you've met someone. I only approve auto-generated rejection emails if you've only applied and you haven't talked to somebody. My rule as a hard rule, if you've even picked up the phone to talk to somebody, you don't have to call them and say, hey, I don't want you, but send an email over that's a little bit more custom that says, thank you so much for the time that you spent with me. I really appreciate our conversation. Unfortunately, you may not be moving forward in the next phase of this process, but don't let that discourage you. You know, this is just a part of, and if candidates ask for feedback all the time, if they say, Jasmine, why was I not selected? I'll call you and tell you why. Right. I'll tell you this may be because you didn't have this skill, or maybe, you know, we weren't able to meet you here, or something that's going on, because that is where that doubt sets in. If you don't know what you're doing wrong, how can you be a better candidate? So again, that's speaking the integrity of the process. Tell me something. Like, don't just say, so next time I get another, right. Especially if you're going to say, you know, check our careers page again. Why would I check your careers page again if I don't even know what I did wrong here? Or if you spent 3 weeks to get back to me and I don't know what's going on. So no.
Right. Well, that lady was so excited. She's like, thank you. I really put some time in. I'm like, lady,
yeah,
people need to see. I want to post this somewhere. Like, you did so good. All right. So another thing that stood out to me was reason number 5, you look expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So now so I'm 41, you know, I'm like, I guess that's considered mid-career. I really think I'm 20, but you know, I feel, you know, but I've been working a long time.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of experience. So when I read this one, I was like, because I've heard that in an interview.
You look expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, I interviewed you, but we know you're out of budget. I'm like, you didn't even ask me my budget yet. Can you share your thoughts and what can you do differently?
Absolutely. So depending on how you want to be perceived will be number 1. So looking expensive on the other side is a term that we use, HR recruiters, whatever, because you'll see a really good resume. And it's almost like it's basically saying it's too good to be true, because it's like, there's no way, because the skills are there. We don't have to talk to you. We see you. We see the certifications. We see the education. We see the experience, the companies you've worked for, the industries, we see all of that. And it's just like, what's the catch? And so the experience piece, or the catch, usually is your salary. So that's why we say they look expensive, because we already know you're not going to be anything less than a certain amount, but we'll still talk to you because we don't want to assume. So we ask those questions, and we're usually right about that. And so depending on the role, if it's a complete match, that's fine. That's okay. You don't have to change anything. But there was an instance where I was connecting with someone who worked for a nonprofit, right? A nonprofit, you have maybe 10 to 15 people in your org, and it's not that many. So you can be the VP of whatever, the VP of communications, but it's just you. Or you could be the senior director of, you know, finance, but it's just you. But on the outside world, we don't know that it's just you. You just look more, you have way more experience than the role requires. You know that it's not at that level, but we don't know that. So a good recruiter, if someone has a good eye, they may understand that based on the job that you have or the company that you're working for. Like, I know a senior VP at maybe the Salvation Army down the street is not the same as a senior VP at Google. So I'll still understand that leveling may just be inflated. And so if you're looking for a role that is equivalent to your experience, change your job title to match what you're going to. So if you know that the role is maybe just a manager or a supervisor or a lead, drop that VP down to match that. So that way we don't automatically disqualify you, because what it tells us is that, why is this person who is way overqualified just by way of title, why are you applying here? It's like a manager applying for a associate level role. Why would you want to go backwards? And some people will explore that question with you, but for the most part, you've seen maybe on social media or just tips that recruiters may be looking at your resume 5 to 7 seconds at a time. Don't give them a reason to throw it out. Give them something to hold on to by doing that work for them, because you can't speak. Your resume is basically you speaking for yourself when you're not there. So drop that title down if it's really not what it translates out to be in the market.
That is so rich. That's so good. Yeah. Because, you know, so many people work for a small business. They have this title, not knocking any of your titles.
Right. I mean, you can VP.
You got a VP title and you've never managed anyone. It's completely different than a VP at AT&T that has a team of 30.
Right. Very different. Very different.
Yeah, so that's good. That was some good. That's a good gem. I hope that you are writing these down because Jasmine is bringing it today. All right, so thank you so much. I again, when I saw that post, I love the difference of perspective, right?
Mhm.
You can sit here and say, hey, on LinkedIn, you should say these things, but a lot of stuff is behind the scenes that we don't know. You know, we're not recruiters, we're applying for the roles and not sure.
Right, right.
So, what additional tips and tools can you share with our subscribers to land that interview? People are interviewing right now, people are applying. So, what are some tips and tools that you can give?
Absolutely. I think one thing is just simplifying the process. It's so much information out there right now where you don't even really know what to start or where to start. You don't know what's what. You don't know what's, if your resume is good, you don't know if it's not good. Should I have a cover letter? Should I not? Do I say this? What do I do? I think what's really important is first tuning out the noise. It's too much noise around you. And that's why you draw a blank in an interview. That's why you don't know where to start. Focus inward first. And so when I start working with my clients, the first thing I want to know is about them. What is important to you? What are your deal breakers? What do you feel, is most important to you moving forward? What do you hate right now about your current situation? What is your ideal situation? And a lot of that is just trying to figure out, what do I want? Once you figure that out, you've tuned out a lot of those just fluff applications that you'll probably just throw out there because you were irritated on your lunch break. You just try to apply to 15 jobs because somebody made you mad.
Tell it on somebody now.
Right. You just apply to a bunch of jobs and then there's no rhyme or reason. So number one, figure out what you want. Number two is create a process. I give my clients a job search organizer. So once you have narrowed down your roles that you want to go towards, you're only applying for that. You have to have a targeted job search. We hear a lot of those buzzwords like optimizing your LinkedIn and all of those things, but what does that actually mean? It means funneling it down. So bringing it in narrow. So figuring out what it is that's important to you, narrowing down the roles that you're trying to go after, and customizing your resume or tailoring it to those specific roles. And I don't mean 100 different variations of your resume, but if I know I want to be an HR generalist, I'm only going to customize my resume to be an HR generalist. I'm going to target roles that have those words in there, that I'm going to put skills that are true to me, not just copying and pasting your job description, but roles that are true to what I've done, things that matter for the roles that I'm going after, and making sure that I have everything that they need to know about me as a professional in my resume. So you have to tailor that for what you're going after. And then, you're doing your best. Again, researching the company and not like, Employee Handbook was founded in 2014. We don't care about the year that the company was founded. Talk about what's important to you that is in line with the role. So if you're big on giving back to the community, talk about that. If someone asks you what's going on, just be informed and do your research, because you have to be able to speak to your experience and speak to the things that you're able to do during those interviews. You have to be able to bring your resume to life. That's all an interview is telling your story in a way that they can see you and picture you in that role, and there's no room for doubt. So you have to practice. These are creating the foundations of your professional brand. But once you do that, you're fine, because you've done the work, and anything that comes after that, what to expect from application to offer.
Awesome. Love that. Okay, so as we close out, are there any podcasts or books that you recommend for our subscribers?
Yes, I'm actually reading one. I'm rereading it now. Nidra Tawwab, I believe her last name is Tawwab. I think I'm saying that right. Forgive me if I'm not, but her book is Find Boundaries, No Peace.
Oh,
yeah. I love her. I love that book. It's so good.
I know, I've heard so many great things about it.
And I say that because part of it, again, was going back to what I was saying about figuring out what's important to you. If you know in an interview or for a new role that you want work-life balance, you're going to have to figure out how to create those boundaries, whether that be in your application process, whether that be in not accepting things that you don't want. If you want to spend time with your family after 7:00 and you don't want Teams chats going off all night, create those boundaries. And so being able to really learn you and what's important to you, and not, be flexible, or not too flexible, but you don't want to be so rigid and, oh, well, I can't make those decisions, or I want to be able to do this, but I'm just going to accept anything. No, Nidra, she's got us all to. So that book is not just career, but she has a career section too. And I think that one is really important. She goes through so many different areas, but That book is good. So that's what I'm currently on. I'm redoing it. She's got a workbook, all of it. So it's really good. Yeah.
Okay. All right, subscribers. Jasmine, you've been amazing. Dropped so
Thank
many
you.
gems. I appreciate you coming, and again, and bringing a fresh perspective on talent acquisition and what recruiters are looking for. How can our subscribers find you?
Yes, so I am all over. It's all the same at the Employee Handbook, all one word, on Instagram, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. I'll start uploading again there. I don't have TikTok yet, but that's coming. So just at the Employee Handbook all over. And then my website is www.emp, like the first beginning of employeehandbook.com. So you can find me there, but links are all over. So thank you again so much.
Awesome. So we will, everyone who's watching, we will be adding that information down below in the comments area so that you can follow Jasmine and listen to all her great advice that she gives. Again, this interview is based on that post she posted, right? And so any last words before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, I think again, so what we talked about in the beginning is just be nice to yourself, give yourself grace, give yourself room and space in this process. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy, but it's not supposed to be a character killer either. So know what you know. If you don't know anything, do your research, connect with me if you need to, and be able just to enjoy the process. You know, you'll find something that matches what you need in due time. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please follow Jasmine and watch the rest of our career experts. Until next time, see you later.
Bye.